It was yet another beautiful day in the streets of New York City. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and it seemed that a lot of people were in a good mood. On this day, there was a teenager who was on his skateboard as he was arriving down the sidewalk, as he was in a little bit of a hurry. He was skating rather quickly until he reached what appeared to be a park. The teenager got off his skateboard and pulled out his phone. "She said this was the place," the teenager said as he held his skateboard in his left hand and texted on his right hand, saying that he was here. He found a nearby park bench and took a seat as he kept checking for a reply. Seconds turned into minutes, and still no reply. The teenager was beginning to question if he was in the right place at all, when suddenly he felt his phone vibrate. He looked at the phone and saw that his contact had replied, saying to stay still. Stay still? What the heck is that supposed to? The teenager said, right when he felt something land on his head. He looked up and saw a teenage girl, who also looked to be 17, as she placed her arms on his head. "I was wondering when you might show up," the girl said, as the boy chuckled a bit. "For a second I thought I was in the wrong place there," the boy said, as he and the girl wrapped their arms around each other as they hugged one another. "I just had to see you before we opened up our college admission letters," the girl said, as the two split up their hug. "And I just had to see you before we opened up our college admission letters," the boy said as he pulled out a letter he had in his back pocket. "You ready for this?" the girl said with visible fear in her voice, as she pulled out a letter from her purse. "Deegan, whatever happens," the boy said as he placed his right hand on Deegan's shoulder, "no matter how many miles apart we are from each other, I know we will always find a way to be together. If our parents couldn't do it, what makes you think distance can?" "I suppose you're right, Wyatt," Deegan said as Wyatt's words calmed her down a little. "Whatever happens, we can get through it together." Deegan and Wyatt then began to open their letters at roughly the same time. They pulled out the piece of paper that would guarantee if they would be spending the next 4 years together in person or not. Wyatt and Deegan were both so nervous in reading their letters that a very tiny amount of sweat was visible on their foreheads, and they hadn't broken a sweat today. Wyatt read his letter out loud first, with clear panic in his voice. "Dear Mr. Marston, thank you for applying to Boulder University. We hope this letter finds you well, blah blah blah, but we regret." Wyatt even froze as the last word he read, regret. No, it can't say regret," Wyatt said in his head as he started to panic like he never panicked before. This wasn't a essay due today panic, but instead the feeling of failure. He wasn't good enough. He and Tegan were going to be miles away from each other. He knew he could handle it, but he didn't want to come to terms with it. Meanwhile, as Tegan was reading her letter, a huge smile appeared on her face. "I did it! I got in!" Tegan shouted as, within a millisecond, she proceeded to hug Wyatt with the tightest hug she had ever gave, and the tightest hug Wyatt was ever in. The room getting darker, Wyatt said, just as Tegan released and caught him right when he was about to fall off the bench. "Sorry, I just can't believe we got into the college of our dreams!" Tegan exclaimed as she said over and over again. But I must ask, what does yours say? Deacon says White showed his letter with misery on his face. It says regret, White said as Tegan then began to read the letter. I didn't get in, White said with sadness in his voice. What are you talking about? Deacon said in an excited voice as she proceeded to show Wyatt the rest of the letter and hugged him at the same time. Wyatt then proceeded to read the letter over again, and his eyes widened. We regret to inform you that your application to Boulder University was delayed, but after seeing it again, you are accepted into Boulder University, Wyatt said with the most excited voice he had in him. We're going to Colorado! Wyatt exclaimed as he and Tegan pulled in for a hug, and after looking into each other's eyes, proceeded to kiss without holding back. It was another happy moment for the two of them. They couldn't wait to spend time with each other across the country in just a few short months. And the thought I got rejected, Wyatt thought to himself, could only be me. Meanwhile, in a room located in the applications part of Boulder University, multiple people were looking over applications for this year's seniors. One of these applications was Wyatt Marston's application. A man who looked to be around 40-ish, was looking over his application with not much interest. He thought that his college essay on differences in rivalry and whatnot was way too typical, and just not what Boulder was looking for. He was about to place his folder in the rejected bin when he got a message saying that his break was now. He got up from his seat, and without looking, put his folder in the acceptance bin by accident. Once he got back, he didn't bother to check the submitted, and submitted his file as a rejected, but ended up with an acceptance letter instead. The acceptance letter was then sent over to the Marston's address a few days later, not knowing what this would cause later down the line.